Welcome back, everyone, to Zeller Podcast. We have another episode, which with a very special guest. Jennifer Cheng Lo here is in the house. I wish there's like a
I
clap
will
audio.
clap.
Yes. So Jennifer Cheng Lo is a verified investor, entrepreneur, and multi-talented creator. She is the founder of Gen Club DAO, newsheetcapital.com, and a partner in multiple funds and projects globally. So she has platforms like Globalify XYZ, New Sheet Capital. She bridges capital, creativity, and cutting-edge technology. Also, what's amazing is she has been an artist all her life and a speaker, pianist, actress, and in fact, we're gonna hear her play soon, and advisor. She also empowers communities and businesses through innovation and influence. And that's why I'm very excited for Jennifer to be here today and super excited to speak with fellow female leaders in the space and also an OG in the crypto space. Little that everyone knows that Jennifer here have invested in a lot of NFTs, and that's what I heard also from the event that I attended, which I'm very honored to meet you in person. And yeah, you're very OG. So I guess I just want to say hi and send it back to you again to do another round of introduction of yourself, and we'll hear you play, which is a very special episode, which we never hear anyone play piano in a podcast before. So hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Teresa. So it's a very honor. It's just such an honor for me. I'm very honored to be here on my first. This is my first Indonesian podcast.
Yeah,
I'm
with
so
an
excited.
Indonesian host.
Yeah, Indonesian host.
But it's still a
I mean,
global
I
podcast.
have been to Indonesia once, like a long time ago, but I am here with Teresa, who is actually really amazing. She's actually even prettier in person than
Thank you.
on camera. Doesn't do it justice. And I'm so honored to be here on Zeller and bringing you, obviously, uh, my sort of perspectives, multiple different perspectives as an entrepreneur, investor, creator. So, as Teresa kindly said, like I am an exited entrepreneur. I'm an investor for my own family office, New Sheet Capital, which means new girl. As a New Sheet Capital family office, I'm surrounded by some of my best friends and partners. Some of them are my high school friends, college friends, MBA friends, and there are people that I've built companies with. Some of them I've had unicorn exits with. They're all exited entrepreneurs and investors for the most part. And I just really I'm very excited too because when Teresa and I met, there was instant chemistry. She's like, "Do you want to be on my podcast?" I'm like, "Sure, I'd love to be on your podcast because you also understand the various different hats we need to wear as women leaders." Right. And so, and then, yeah, she is actually right. I own most of, I would say I'm best because I just did another um, podcast on NFTs as an asset class. I don't think they are an asset class. I like to collect
Diba?
NFTs and support different communities and artists. I think they can be a part of amazing projects that I do invest in. I love investing in combination of hybrid equity and token. And then Teresa was kind enough to mention, yes, I'm an LP. Not only have I invested in a couple hundred companies, but also funds directly. And then I love to explore co-investments as well as bring that to my community so that we, as entrepreneurs, investors, can give each other wings, empower each other, lift each other up, of course. And yeah, I'm an award-winning concert pianist. I was a piano prodigy at piano, so you'll hear that very shortly. And
Mhm.
I'm an actress, model. I do that occasionally still. And yeah, I'm gonna show you guys more in a little bit. But yeah, I'm just very excited to be here with you, Teresa, and dialoguing with you. So I'm gonna
Thank
head over
you.
to my
Yes.
Steinway now. I have a Steinway brand in my home. Seller watchers, this is gonna fly me to the moon. Yeah, just a little taste. And yeah,
So
I'm just gonna
great.
see you back over there. But really funny. Last week I was actually the first pianist on the moon. My punk and I landed on the moon. Yeah, and I was the first pianist on Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Uh,
Ethereum was several years ago, and then Bitcoin was last year slash this year. So I was yeah, very excited to get back over there, and I'm so happy I could play a little for Teresa and her Zeller watchers. I'm gonna head back
oh
to
my gosh. Thank you for
my podcast station now.
Thank you so much for playing that for the audience. And yeah, let's deep dive into more about yourself and beyond, what you do and what inspires you. So I guess like the first question to start is how does the evolution start, from being, let's say, having a family offices, being also what you said, an accident entrepreneur, all the
Mm.
way to having this so many platform that empowers entrepreneurs, that empowers VC deal flows, and also being an OG yourself.
Yeah. Wow. You're so kind. I feel like sometimes when for example, at conferences, I forget that everyone recognize me. I'll see other OGs, like for example, Yatsu. I'll see
Mhm.
Sebastian. I'll see my uh, all my friends. I mean, even like at the APAS, I was like, Garga was like, "Hey, are you like Jennifer?" I'm like, "Wow, Garga recognized me." Board API Club, yay! Right. So sometimes, like, I think right now, for me, when I like take a sort of retrospective look at what how my journey was, it was actually a very sort of a strange journey. So I actually started out as a classical pianist. So before age 2, my parents took me to the Disney World, and I was able to actually come back and play the piano. I played "It's a Small World After All" on the piano,
Yeah.
and then there's, like, a little picture of me and my parents had that where I didn't even, I wasn't even, like, standing, up yet. I was just, like, sitting at the piano as a little, like, toddler, and, it became apparent that, I had, like, sort of a ear, and I mean, I feel like I'm a hybrid, like I was saying before, multifaceted, multi-hyphenate,
Oh, yeah.
because, I started out, really more as an artist, a musician, and so I was, 8 or 9 when I got into the New England Conservatory of Music for piano. I was, accepted as one of the best schools, for those of you who know, in the US. So they have Juilliard, New England Conservatory, which is in Boston, is one of the best schools for music. I was so lucky to be accepted by the head of the piano department. Her name is Jean Stackhouse. I actually got to play for her a little bit virtually last year. She's amazing. I also studied under some of the best pianists, including Anthony de Bonaventura. He was widely considered the best pianist of all time. So I actually started with him
Wow.
as a 12, 13 years old teenager. Yeah, quite young. I was around that age. Got into his PhD piano program at
Mhm.
performance program at Boston University. So I was also, kind of a geek. I did a Boston University Academy for high school. I did other high schools too. But my brother and I, growing up, we did things early. We took the SATs early. We took tests early, and then we really loved learning and doing. So then I discovered is I had like sort of a natural curiosity for learning all the time that I really liked to build companies. So it went beyond like playing Monopoly with my brother. It would go beyond playing virtual stock market games.
Mhm.
Or even like there's a game called Tycoon, and then we would be reading like Rich Dad Poor Dad, the Kai Kawasaki,
Yeah.
and just making sure like oh we're not only like financially literate, but also business savvy. So
Mhm.
the other thing that I really enjoyed in both high school and college was entering, business competitions and hackathons. So it was
Wow.
actually, that was actually really fun. I feel like that's actually part of your learning and growth. So in college, I went to undergrad at Brown University. My brother and I also started companies. I also worked at tech companies. Two of the companies I worked at were acquired by Yahoo, in fact. And
Mm.
so and then I feel like one of the things that we also have to do, not only as women but as entrepreneurs, is things that we are scared of. So one thing I was scared of was picking up the phone and talking to strangers. But then I
Right.
wanted to do that for the fundraising drive. So I did that for the Brown Annual Fund. I would call and make 50 calls a day. I'd be like, "Hi, alumni, can you get back to the women program, Pembroke program, etc." So I think that's one of the things I also learned. While I was in high school and college, and even actually as a child, I kept getting scouted by modeling agencies and acting agencies. So my mom said, okay, fine, because I was actually quite shy. Many people don't know this about me, but I'm actually kind of an introvert. I can turn it on
Right.
when I need to perform, but I'm actually a very private person. Even though, on the surface I might seem like, oh, I like to share and this and that. So I one of the things I really enjoy about being able to be a multi hyphenate is that I think, as when we're looking at such a complex dichotomy of Web 2, Web 3 technology and different innovation in the world, we have to keep being chameleons, right? So
Yes.
while I was in college, I was acting and modeling again, taking the bus to New York, doing shoots. I was on Saturday Night Live before. I was on Conan. Obviously, it was under a stage name. And then before I decided to make the leap to come to Hong Kong, I was actually up for the role of Vanessa on Gossip Girl. I came to Hong Kong because I got a very sizable scholarship to Hong Kong University of Science and
Uh-huh.
Technology. And I decided like, oh, I don't want to hit a glass ceiling. Let me come over to Asia and also try my luck over here. And I wanted
Mhm.
to be in more than one country. So that's another little fun tidbit I just gave your viewers. Yeah, I was up for the role of Vanessa on Gossip Girl. And it was as well as there were other roles that I got to, audition and screen test for, like Memoirs of a Geisha, and then I had been on a
Wow.
lot of various film
Mhm.
and TV. My face used to be in Times Square. I was on like phone covers for different like Motorola, like different companies. So
Mhm.
and it was just like I think I also did an Avon ad once, but yeah, but not to belabor it. I think one of the things that I learned is that we always have to be creating, building, doing, and
Mhm.
executing. And then I started my family office actually after, like, when I was in business school, I was just like I was in college. I was a workaholic. So I
Mhm.
worked at different companies to get experience, but I also was part of the founding team of different companies. One of those companies, so I have had other exits, was a company that actually became really big in e-commerce space. So I led us to millions and millions and millions of revenue. Our funding
Mhm.
was actually an IPO. And
Wow.
I left because I had enough proceeds from the IPO to start my own family office. So the IPO, it was a e-com company that was called Be Crazy. The IPO became Insogo, and then afterwards it became the foundation for my Web3 company partners. Did the two ICOs for it. It was first Monaco, then became Crypto.com.
Wow.
So that's actually how I accidentally got into Web3 as well. But then beforehand, and one of the things that I'm not wearing an NFT shirt for once today. I am wearing my punk though. Shout out! This is from the one of the Bitcoin jewelers because they customized my punk for me. But one of the things that I felt was very important to also highlight is that you mentioned that the importance before of like what we're doing in terms of technology and AI. That was the
Mhm.
panel you attended for me, right? Or not attended for me. The panel that you were interacting with me, were dialoguing in Hong Kong.
Yes.
And actually, one of my AI partners, who I want to invite onto this podcast, you did see him, Globalify, Eric. But then there was another one where they have like the leading KOL presence as well as VTuber presence in Southeast Asia as an agency too. It's a company I invested in early on called AKA Virtuals. So
Okay, for sure.
they do, yeah, I'm sure you guys have heard of it, but I'm also going to be collaborating them as one of the first. I will be the first BNS, and I'll be classically rendered, and I'll be like anime and AI. So this is the first podcast I'm announcing that on. So I'm breaking that news to you guys, lucky Zeller listeners. But it's amazing because Sega invested in that company,
Mhm.
and I was lucky enough to be in the friends and family. And as you heard on the piano, that was actually one of the pieces because my character has a lot to do with the moon. So that's why I was
Mhm.
like, hey, I hope all your projects, Teresa, as well as listeners of Zeller, fly to the moon, but land safely, right? We have to aim for the
Of
stars, land
course.
safely on the moon. And then I apologize if my cat comes over and starts meowing, but I do have a cat. So she'll come over and start maybe meowing at you and also join the podcast and be podcasting along. But yeah, that's sort of my life in a or my circuitous journey, and we can totally deep dive into any sort of facet of that as
Yes.
well. But I think it's very important that we exercise the different parts of our identities, our strengths, and learn from our weaknesses. Right. So I'm going to pass that
Exactly.
mic back over to you. Oh,
Okay.
remember, I have also that I have to put this back earlier too. I should might as well say it, right? Yeah, might as well.
Yes. Go
Remember.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I was actually showing this to Teresa because I was like choosing my podcast station just now, and I was like, "Hey, did you know that I was I'm going to put it this way. I was the finalist for Ernst and Young Global Young Entrepreneur of the Year." And she was like, "Wow!" And I was like, "Actually, the year that I got that, the person who did win was Jack Ma of Alibaba." And I was very fortunate. I was think the only woman finalist. Oh, my cat just came over for a quick pat. You see her jump up later. Don't
You're
push
like
talk.
inches away,
I'm
inches
just inches
away.
away. She's trying to get my Stanley Cup.
Amazing, amazing. Wow. There's so many things that you have been doing, and it's so crazy how you have to like wear so many hats. And I definitely feel that because, sometimes people would ask, what are you focused on, right? What is your full-time job? Like on in the reality, there's like no really full-time job because like we're each of us are like doing different things at the same time. We're like also an opportunist, and like I see you as an opportunist as well. So if there's any challenges that you would take on, then you would definitely take on. And then that's what I've been seeing from what you were doing like this past year, right? But I do want to deep dive more on like the Web3 side, because you mentioned like you IPO'd crypto.com, which is like super,
Oh,
super
no.
massive.
So my IPO was the predecessor before the two
Oh, the
ICOs became
predecessor.
Crypto.com. But one of the things I do want to tell your Southeast Asian audience, for sure, and I'm sure everyone has heard of, all the usual suspects. I
Mhm.
was like actually got to invest in Grab before their SPAC, for example, like things like that. Like I'm sure there's certain things that are more familiar to your audience, and then there are things that are familiar to the Western audience. One of my friends was on the management team at Uber. One of my cousins was at Spotify, so I'm sure that these are also international names, right? So, but one of the things that I want to just kind of specify also more is like, for a lot of Web3 to succeed, Web2
Yeah,
needs to happen. Is Web2
exactly.
plus Web3 is Web5, right? Because a lot of like what people are, you were saying that we have to talk more about Web3, which I absolutely agree. Someone was saying before, are you a Web3 native? And I said, no, nobody is Web3 native unless you were actually
Mm,
born on the blockchain. Like it's a misnomer to be like, oh, I'm Web3 native. I'm like, well, was your medical record on the blockchain? Is like, are you like literally born onto the blockchain? I
exactly.
can say like, hey, one of my customized punks, she was born on the moon, and yeah, I am in the Moon Mars Museum as one of the top women in tech in their book this year, the 25. Yeah, so that's why I was like so happy. And by the way, as belated happy International Women's Day to you, Teresa.
Oh
This
yes,
is the
happy
first
International Women's
podcast
Day.
I'm doing. I'm wearing a sort of a pink in solidarity and against one of my this is a local Hong Kong artist. I got one of his paintings, and he was like, it's actually I think very cool because I was like, let's sit in front of the horizon and the sunset. So
Yes, this
I
series will be like a
had so
international
much fun
women's
talking to
day.
you. We should just
Definitely.
like we should have a virtual coffee or just have coffee next time you're in
Yes,
Hong Kong or
of
I'm
course.
after. Yeah.
Let's do that. But one thing that
Yeah.
you were saying that you
Mm.
are like an accidental entrepreneur and it's an
Yes.
accident for you to be into Web3, right? And why stay?
Yes.
That's like the biggest question. Why stay?
Why stay? Well,
Yeah.
because I think like first of all, I think it's not a blip in the pan. I think Web3 is here to stay. Blockchain
Mhm.
technology is here. Ledger technology is here. People do understand, like, oh, it's not just an M&A for exit anymore. M&A can consist of pure M&A, can consist
Yes.
of a SPAC, it can consist of reverse listing, it can be an IPO and then ICO, which is initial coin offering. So I think like a lot of people are like, because also the other thing I want to say too is I feel like crypto gets a bad rap. I feel like there are people that you have to be wary and cognizant of in all industries. So, if there is someone, for example, who wants to defraud investors in Web2, or there's a fund manager who is acting inappropriately and misusing funds, and if they're managing other people's money. So,
Mhm.
by the way, other people were asking me on the panel, what is the difference between a family office and a fund manager? And I said a
Yeah.
family office means I'm managing my own, as well as it might be close family members' money. It's private money. It's personal money. So, and then for funds, and for public companies, it's public money, or for it was like public fund. As a private equity
Yes.
fund, it's LP money, but otherwise it's OPM, meaning other people's money. So I think the
Mm.
main thing about Web3 is it is here to stay. People who are here to stay for the long run are people who care about generating impact and returns over the long run, right? And I would say that of any company, whether it is Web2 or Web3. If there's like a company that's, for example, like, oh, I am like a pancake store and like I am doing bad business, then you will do bad business. It doesn't matter if you're like a pancake store that also has NFTs, right? So it's fundamentally the businesses must be sound, the people must be KYC'd, embedded, and they must be of a good quality, right? Otherwise,
Yes.
that's why I approach my partnerships as well as my investments so carefully. So, I mean, that's a very acute point you made just there, Teresa, because it is very,
Yes.
very, very important that we understand that Web3 is what we make it.
Okay. But how do you actually, with the current market and narrative, a lot of like, even in Web3, people are saying that you can, have a project that's anonymous, you can be undoxed and everything, and it's still. So how do you actually segregate in terms of like, oh, who to invest and which one to know whether they're a good project? Is it always the docs one, or do you also
I never work with undoxed people.
mhm.
Because I feel
Okay.
like if you're like, oh, don't dox me, don't dox me. Oh, don't dox. I feel like, okay, well, if you're like undoxed, that means you have no track record. Most people end up doxed. If you're going to be successful, you're going to be ending up doxed. I mean, let's face it, right? Like half the time I see like, I mean, one of the only reasons like, I also am accidentally on Telegram, accidentally on Twitter, because I realized that if I didn't do that, then I saw all these like fake imposter accounts of me, and
Yes.
it was my friends telling me about it, right? And that's why another thing when people when you guys look at social media and everything, don't follow the wrong person. Follow them with a check mark. Look for mutual followers. Luca Nuts is following me. And they're not following the fake Jennifer, right? Look for the actual. Yeah, I mean you can look at. I mean I'm sure you're on Twitter and or on LinkedIn. We have a lot of mutuals, and so I want to give you your flowers too. It's like Teresa, one of the reasons why I would be on your podcast is you carefully curate your guests. You don't want to be like, oh, well, let me introduce an undoxed person who I have to like put an NFT on their face the whole time while they're talking. I mean
Exactly.
that is so I mean for me like to be undoxed to be doxed is to be transparent. Anything I
Mm,
do publicly I am okay. The blockchain, the chain
yeah.
doesn't lie. If someone like went and drained someone, that's there. And
Exactly.
I mean, you're gonna be the second podcast I talk about it on, but I was actually drained of a sizable amount right before consensus. And it
Wow.
was of my hot wallets, and it was of people because I had money in my hot wallets because I was tired. And that's another thing I would like to have everyone. If it's your money and it's your
Mm,
crypto, you have the keys. But not just that, be careful what you're clicking on. All my valuable assets are my hard wallets, obviously. If you're working with
mm,
teams, make sure it's multi-sig, that the wallet and the provenance, where everything is going. But also,
yes.
like for me, it was because I was tired. I was in transit. I wanted to donate more money to friends who had lost homes and resources in LA during the wildfires. So and then so for me, I was just like, I finished clicking and then I fell asleep and then I accidentally was emojiing something on Twitter and it like clicked into like a burner, like not a burner, a fake link in the Telegram that then drained my
Oh, wow.
mobile, sorry, my hot wallets. So
You know
those of
what's
you,
that's
I think your audience is pretty savvy, right? You guys know the difference between a hot wallet and a
yes,
hard
yes,
wallet.
of
You
course.
do okay, okay, great. Because I don't,
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
like I
yeah.
said, the other one. I know you guys are typically web, yeah, savvy and everything. Is so there was
Yeah.
someone asking the audience like, what's a hard wallet and a hot wallet? I'm like, okay,
Okay,
so
you know what that's interesting because that's, like, exactly what happened with Bybit. It's really,
yes.
like, they click on a phishing link, and it's like a human problem, it's not like a tech problem, they would say. So what's your take on
Mhm.
that?
Yeah, so that's the other thing. Even if it is a multi-sig wallet,
Yeah.
make sure like especially when other folks funds are involved, that everyone kind of signs off on it. I don't want to comment in on Bybit in particular because I wasn't there when it happened. It could have been super accidental. And in general, like I'm an American citizen living in Hong Kong. I don't like to comment on things that are political in any sort of way, or
Yeah.
because I'm not full disclosure, I don't actually use Bybit. I don't and I don't have any funds on Bybit and everything. But I do know people who have, and I know people who also were like, investors in Bybit. Um, I think the most important thing is if you're in a position of trust, like you should definitely like check before you start clicking. It's like I mean, it's like if you're a company and you're like wiring something to a bank or you're doing like payroll, like try to do things that like especially if it's like there's more than I would say, like, if there's more than $1 million involved, if there's, like,
Mm,
potentially hundreds of millions or maybe billions involved, it's actually best to, like, check, double check,
yeah.
call another teammate, because like, I mean, aside from, like, accidents, human error is definitely, a thing. Like,
Yeah.
and machines and algorithms, they can make error too. So the main thing is actually if you're employing like automated sign-offs or automated everything, check, recheck. I think the best thing to do is like have 3 people check because like, uh, then it's like 2 out of 3, then people will be like, "Oh, wait, I caught that, just now you and I were rechecking my sound. That was great. Like, we
Yeah.
got to check it," right? It's like, it's just,
Exactly.
don't take things for granted. Like, it's
Yes.
right? So I especially if, like, there's, potentially millions or billions on the line. That's
I
yeah, I know
totally. Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure it was like I'm sure it was a innocent mistake, uh yeah, like um, especially like, in light of like other potential bad actors in our market,
Yes.
market
Mhm.
manipulation, everything, just like be careful out there, right? And
Yes.
especially
Yes.
if these are, uh, you know, especially if it's like even if even if you just have a multi-sig wallet, don't take it for granted that like, oh yeah, I'm fine. You then you have to go through the multi-function, everybody like checking. And then the other thing is you can recover things faster. Like for me, like whenever I, for example, send crypto to someone or anything, I will also do like a small test transaction first.
Mhm.
So before I'm like, hey, like I'm not gonna be like, here's 50,000. I'll be like, here, can you receive my like fifty
Yes, it's
dollars?
a test
Okay, great.
transaction. I think
Yeah,
that's
do a
pretty.
test transaction. I mean, that's a good practice. Do a test transaction. The other thing is, after you do a transaction, copy out the transaction ID. Go
Yeah.
check, recheck, right? Like, and then also send it out to your. I'm sure Bybit has an accounting team, right? Like, so like, send it to your accounting team, your treasury team, so everyone knows that that happened.
Mhm.
So yeah, like cover your bases, document. Right. I think that's
Of
what I
course.
would advise. Not being just disclaimer here. I don't have any funds on Bybit. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know some
But
people
that's
at
sound
Bybit.
advice, people. It
Yeah,
applies to
just
like every
objective.
other investors and
Exactly.
exchanges to avoid like this kind of things from happening again because like it's a huge incident and it really affects like the whole industry.
Of
But I do
course.
want to get back to like the your journey. You
You're
also have.
you're really good. I wanna say, Teresa, you're an intrepid, podcaster. You're keeping me on my toes. That was not in the list. Oh, sorry, they were general questions on my bio. I see that you said, but,
Yeah, but the marketing
um
was not in the list, I know.
no, 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 and I think it's absolutely great because that's very important. The final thing I would say is don't, if as even if you're an institutional investor and if you're a private investor, think of ways to keep amounts on custody
Mhm.
because there could
Mm,
always be and your own custody. So, like, I also like, I have several hard wallets. I think it's best to not put all your eggs into one basket and don't keep all your money on an exchange. Like, that's, like, dangerous. Don't be like, "Hey, all my net worth is on one exchange," and you don't know what's gonna happen. It's also
exactly.
like, remember the bank runs in, US last year, right? Like, you don't
Mhm.
keep all your money in one bank either. It's like that's yeah, so just, invest good investment advice is to, don't keep all your eggs in one
Self-custody.
basket, diversify, and just spread the things out so and then, ensure some of your more valuable assets, I guess.
Definitely, definitely. So you've also like created Gen Club DAO.
Mm.
So I want to like know more about what inspires you creating that and was when was that created and what is it for actually? Is there like an intersection between that and also like your current or your previous like work or like investments and also all sorts of things
Definitely.
like, with
Oh,
the DAO?
wow. That's another amazing question. So I started the Gen Club DAO. You can see JENNCLUB, or you can even just go to jenniferchenglo.com. I'll redirect to there. Um,
Okay.
during the pandemic, because I wanted to reach more people. I know a lot of people were not just lonely, there was like a loneliness epidemic. But
Mhm.
at that point in time, I also started playing on Clubhouse, pre Twitter spaces. I played for different rooms for impact. I raised money for COVID relief. I played piano for actually almost 300 days straight. Some of the videos
Wow.
uploaded to my YouTube. And then there were people who messaged me around the world. There were some because I was known as Hong Kong's quarantine cast because they had a really strict quarantine policy of over a month.
Mhm.
There were people who wrote me and said, looking forward to your concerts every day when I was locked up in quarantine was one of the reasons why I didn't self harm myself or hurt
Wow.
myself
Oh my gosh.
and or like feel like leaving the world. And I was like,
Mm.
wow. So, I got my full share of cyberbullying and people who are, you know,
Mhm.
um, not nice before, but I also got my a share of people saying this has been amazing. And I was like lucky, we were mentioning NFT collections, but World of Women, they honored me as I was the finalist for Web3 for Good.
Mhm.
And I was able to get the I was able to just I think in times of challenge, I used my music as sort of a beacon to
Okay.
communicate with the world. And then the other thing is I know that NFTs are not accessible to everyone. So if you're on my site and you go to like the Web3 merch, I've actually put most of the NFTs I love on t-shirts so that not only
Mhm.
I could wear them, but other people could and access them. So for example, like, I even gifted, I collected more than 1,500 NFTs across Ethereum
Wow.
and ordinals and also Solana chains. Um, uh, but I also gifted away more than 500. You can actually see in some
Mhm.
of my gifting wallets that I did that. Then I would like to collaborate. I'm sorry. Then I did collaborate with different artists for one-on-ones and for different communities. There was an African artist who I collaborated with. She made one that like looked like me, and she said, "Oh, the money you're giving me for my one-on-one, it's going for my university education. Also, I'm paying off, my one of my relatives is in the hospital." So and then, yeah, again, the Stop Asian Hate. I was also the pianist for like that as well. So all in all, like a lot of my concerts, both physical and virtual, because I also played in concert halls in San Francisco and Hong
Mhm.
Kong, towards the middle and end of the pandemic. Um, a lot of people said they were really touched, and then they were able to raise millions of dollars. So that's why one of the reasons why I started my Gen Club DAO. The other thing is that there's sometimes folks like you, I consider you a luminary because when you came right up to me and you're like, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about how we as women can, uplift the ecosystem."
Mhm.
More, I'm down for that. And one of the reasons why is because, you know, as women, there's so much more expected of us. I think still we still have a huge double standard. So that's why when people are like, "Oh, do you have a focus?" And I said, "Well, the Gen Club was I think having a fan club is really outdated now. I wanted to have a way to be more inclusive. There's also an application system to get into my DAO because I don't want
Mhm.
everyone to just say like, "Oh, hi, I have access to you 24/7," right? Because there's not enough time in a day. So even if I right now, for example, I'm receiving like 5,000 business decks a month, then it has to be parceled out. There is a process to be in queue, right? And then
Yeah.
I'm receiving too many like, uh, you know, people sending me their I mean, I could show you my phone. There were like I think I did. I showed you like there were 30,000 DMs on Twitter and on
Wow.
Telegram, and then every day there's like 100. That's why I have to write no DMs. Because people keep messaging me their fundraising backs. And I'm like, no, actually, you should be submitting on the site via protocols from my portfolio managers, and those on my diligence team can take a look, right? Because there's also a conflict of interest. I would love to invest in and donate to every single person in the world, but I can't actually meet everybody. So my DAO was a way of like empowering, and then everyone
Mhm.
who joined my Diamond Elite Club actually would collaborate and do a special NFT just for them too.
I see. And is
Yeah.
this also related to why you also started or actually advised for Globalify? Because
Yeah.
Globalify is also like a way where like
Yeah.
VCs can actually do like a
Yeah.
good like PD and stuff, and then you can also
Absolutely.
out everything, right?
Wow,
So
you connect all the dots. I'm really you should be you're gonna be like a guest on my upcoming podcast. So I have one that I've
yes,
been
happy
queuing up
to
the
do that.
guests. It's called well, I'll give you the name later, but it's actually very exciting. I'll be doing with one of my other podcast partners. She has a few 100,000 followers across her YouTube, and she's one of the thought leaders in China.
Wow. I
Yeah,
don't
her name
think
is
I'm like
Ashley. Actually, you
almost
can see her on my site. Ashley did the knock, and she speaks fluent Russian and fluent Chinese. She's an amazing thought leader. So but one of the things that she and I were also discussing was the fact that, you know, we as women, we're always taught and inculcated by society to say yes all the time and not have proper boundaries. So this is a
yeah.
way if people have shared vision and values, they want to support, women and allies. And for Globalify, actually, I met Eric virtually first 5 years ago because
Mhm.
he was an application. He was
Yeah.
on my Gen Club DAO because
Got
he
it.
wanted to add that mentoring to me. And then he submitted a really nice application. Then I got to meet him several times IRL. Then and then our co-founder Arston was only 18 when he started Globalify CTO.
Mhm.
And then I had mentored the other. Uh, another year, a cohort that they were the Draper Hero program actually. So,
Mm,
and I said, like, this is actually amazing because I think one of the things we need to do is connect and make those millions and billions of connections between entrepreneurs, investors, builders, and partners. Whether it's Web 2 or Web 3 or AI, we want to connect people
yeah.
with vetted connections. And then it's like LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn and you are a vetted actual person and not, I don't want to say a fake scam bot, but yes, you're not a fake scam bot, then you will have those human relationships to make it happen. So this is our way to accelerate deserving entrepreneurs and fund managers so that they can find each other faster. And it's a search
Mhm.
engine too. So that way, if like you are typing in like if you're a climate company, and you can try it yourself on Globalify XYZ, but if you
Yeah.
are looking for like a climate investor, then you won't get like a consumer tech investor. And then you can target
Yeah.
by geography and region, and it's a way of deepening those. But then also we've been having success cases too because we have a program called Super Connect, and that way we can also provide much added value for startups all looking to scale. Because like let's face it, startups it's not for lack of funding and not for lack of uh, people. It's actually
Mhm.
for lack of curated time and curated connections. So
Exactly.
that's why
Yeah.
we yeah, so that's how Global Vi evolved and continues to evolve. Because I'm sure just everyone wants your time all the time, Teresa. You're lovely, you're smart. Everyone's like probably like, oh, and I'm sure there's like a long queue of people you're carefully selecting for your podcast, right? You don't just say like, oh, everyone, I'm gonna be podcasting and live streaming, $500 a day. That can't happen, right?
Exactly, exactly. Wow, that's amazing. Because I think, coming from also having like a few startups and also having my own business, I think
Yes.
that's really, really important because I've talked to countless VCs that doesn't
Yes.
even understand Web3,
I
don't have
know.
don't have an appetite for
No
investing in
names,
Web.
guys, no names, but
No,
yeah,
no
I've
need.
met so many AI, investors who are like, "Oh, yeah," I'm like, "Actually, that's not an AI, that's an algorithm." I'm like, "Right." And then you actually your background too, I mean, you have with your wallet company and everything, I mean,
Mm,
that you're working with, so, please actually expand upon those people who are in the space who don't have that working knowledge. And I mean,
yeah.
also make investments, right? I'm scared.
Exactly, exactly. And sometimes they don't know. Sometimes investors needs to be guided. I don't know if this is like the same thing that's happening to you because especially investors here in the region, they're like always guided with whichever, makes the most money. But after, curating in a way where they have to understand the business and everything. And Web3 is actually a new type of business, especially for like
Yes.
Indonesia, for example, or like
Absolutely.
talking about outside of Singapore, just like Southeast Asia in general, they're still focused on really like the conventional business, the D2C brands. And that's what I've been, advocating for more investors and even talking to them. They don't have to invest, right? But it's just, I want to educate them that this is the future. All the other companies are actually adopting this, banks, even countries are adopting Bitcoin as reserve and everything. So
Yes.
it's really important for us to catch up and not to be, really late to join the trend.
Yes. I
Exactly.
love
As
that. Yes, you have to be ahead of the curve. You can't like
yeah,
miss the wave. You can't like fall down and like it's like
yeah.
surfing. You want to catch the wave. You don't want to be like, oops, I fall into the wave. You can't do that. And then you're absolutely right, Teresa. Like, as we as a family office investing my own
Hmm,
money and also as someone deploying and allocating to fund managers and everything, I want to
yeah.
know that everyone is doing their research and doing their
Mhm.
diligence. And if you are not up on those basic, I mean, you were absolutely right. Like Web 3 is a different ballgame entirely. And then if people there's another thing, like, people also have to figure out, and I love how you said earlier, long term, you're here to stay. Yes, I'm here to stay because it's about the long term. It's not about like, "Yay, I did an NFT collection. Oh my gosh, like, we made 2,000 ETH. Bye." Like,
Yes.
like, "Thank you so much, guys. Bye." Like, the point is not to be everyone's it's not the point is not to turn everyone into your exit liquidity, and the point is
Yeah.
also not to become everyone's exit liquidity. So, I mean, I love how you just laid that out just now. I mean, it's responsible for us to,
I totally agree
educate
with that.
ourselves.
Yes, because especially in this market, everything's going into meme coins at the moment, and we're gonna diverge into like narrative. I want to ask you like a few questions on that, but everyone's trying to like make some quick money, and I feel that the backbone of this industry is not supposed to look like that, even for outsiders. It's just gonna make a bad rep for people who wants to get into Web3. So I guess like, people who wants to get into Web3, it's about like building this technology. It's about, understanding what is the technology layer, and what is the use case that is essentially, important for people to understand, and for people to build on top of this technology. Because it's not just like, crypto, you're in and then you're out and then buys you another 4 years, right? And it's like very tied into the core of why people built the solution. So
Yeah.
so I do want to ask you on like what's the next narrative of crypto, because I mean, like the market's currently, as we're talking, hopefully it's better later on when we release this podcast. But the market's kind of shaky right now. The US wants to, they have already signed a strategic reserve for Bitcoin. Meme coins are like kind of, this people have like no trust anymore on that. And then it's slowly moving towards AI agent. I'm also quite researching on the AI agent, and hopefully gonna launch another project with that. But I do want to see and hear your perspective on what is gonna be the next sustainable narrative in crypto.
Yeah, for sure. Do you mind actually if I grab my phone and start showing you?
Yes, of course.
I'll do that because I can demonstrate it. Because also you're now the second podcast I've told about my AI agent, which I actually launched um
Ooh, okay.
back in December. I'll be
Yes.
okay. So the narrative actually is uh being shaped by all of us. You can still hear me, right?
Yeah, I
Okay,
can.
great. So the narrative actually is still being shaped by all of us. So I'm just gonna direct people quickly to my Twitter, which is actually like lagging. I think Elon,
Oh, it's
oh, full
been done.
disclosure, I'm a
It's been
private
down like
investor in SpaceX.
yesterday.
What?
It's been down yesterday for like
Yeah,
three
I
times.
know. It's so I was just saying maybe like he's like very busy doging over there. Sorry. Like, okay, I'm a
I
US
hope
citizen. I'm not going to comment. And
yes.
you may also during actually a couple months before consensus, I was the chair of the US trade mission um pre-November to the US consulate. So I played
Mhm.
piano in the US consulate. I might release that up later. But you said it yourself. The future is community. These are some of my this is my Twitter banner. This is some of
Mhm.
my communities. So you can see everyone from Azuki to the punks to doodles to the milady, and then this one, for example, earlier I said I was the first pianist on Bitcoin. This is my tiny Viking open ordinal. So they're doing like open tooling and open devs. I'm advisoring and also their chief like music officer. I
Mhm.
also said that I'm going to be working and collaborating closely with AK Virtuals, which I invested in, right? And this was like
Yeah.
4.5 years ago. And so when people ask me like, "Oh, when did you start investing in AI?" Because like a lot of people are like, "Oh, I started investing in crypto in 2020." And I'm like, "Yeah, so I accidentally got in like 2013 to 15." And people are like, "Wait, what?" So for me, I think right now when we look at markets and history, you have to understand that I don't have a crystal ball for the future, but history is
Yeah.
always cyclical. It repeats itself,
It
right?
repeats itself.
It repeats
Yes.
itself, right? There's patterns. And then right now, like, for example, one of the folks that I really like love looking at is the classic investor Warren Buffett. He has a huge cash
Yeah.
reserve right now, right? So that's why the other thing is like, um, I've always said like when the market is volatile, don't be like doing like lots of trades and doing lots of things because like you're not going to out trade the traders. And then for like, for example, meme coins and everything, you're not going to out snipe the snipers. If you're going to
Yeah.
launch a meme coin, you have to have like an anti sniping strategy. You have to have snipers on your side. You have to also have like anti snipers. You have to have a lot. There's a lot of factors. And then full disclosure, like on my Twitter, which is okay, I actually have my own AI agent. I'm going to rename her soon because she's collaborating with AKA Virtuals and their
Mhm.
stealth project. They have a stealth project coming out soon that is a lot already. A lot of communities and a lot of leading gaming communities and AI
Yeah.
communities have backed and partnered with. But and this was my punk, by the way, the one that went to the moon, the customized paladin punk. Yeah. So, but
Yeah.
my AI, so right now it's called on my Twitter profile, Jennifer Cheng Lo, you can see my agent. She's actually answering a lot of
Yes.
people in real time. And then I
Okay.
actually programmed her myself. I programmed her
Wow.
myself so that way I would be able to learn. So I don't know what the narrative is. All I know is that I want to be part of the narrative, right? And I also think we're on a weird inflection point. So I'm gonna ask if your listeners. I'm gonna give you guys another treat. Have you guys ever heard of Game of Thrones?
Yes, of course.
Yes. And then, so those of you who have read British literature, Chaucer is the grandfather of British literature. So, back in the when you have a Game of Thrones, um, Chaucer was actually he died in 1400. So if you look at Game of Thrones, the English they were probably speaking back then was closer to Anglo-Saxon because
Mm.
the Bretonians, the guys in the British Isle, the Gauls, the Vikings, the Romans, the Germanic tribes, they were all fighting over the British Isles. And then there was also like the Chaucer's Canterbury Tales came out around the time. So people were like reeling from the holy wars. There was a lot of geopolitical tension. We had COVID. They had Black Death. They had the
Uh-huh.
Industrial Revolution. They had also the Cultural Renaissance, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot. It's like we're at a very strange but exciting inflection point in history. So if you don't mind, I'm going to recite. It's going to take 15 seconds. The first 18 lines of the Canterbury Tales in the Germanic English. Okay,
Mhm.
and it is about all the people making a pilgrimage to the Archbishop of Canterbury's shrine because he'd helped a lot of them, and he had
Yeah.
become a martyr, right? And so there was like a lot of uncertainty in the world. But there was also a lot happening at the same time. I mean, we all survived the collective event COVID, right? So, and
Yes.
here it goes. When it avril with the shore so that the dracht march of Paris to the rote, and bother Venus which the courage verge engendered is the floor. On Zephyr's ache with his weight to breath. In spirit half and every holt in head, the thunder crops. And the young is on the half and the ram is how chorus your own and smaller fowless. Makin melodia. That's slapping all the neat with open air. So prick them not or in her courages, the mange book to go on pilgrimages, and palmerus for to second strangeness. The furnace always called in some Londis, especially from every sheerest ender of England's to Canterbury the wende. The holy blissful Martha for to sake that had opened one that they were sake. So, so, yeah. Speaking like this boy. It means another language. It's a very old language. It's spoken in the 1400s. I mean, I studied the
Wow.
Canterbury Tales in the original text. I also took Latin for 7 years. Yeah, I'm a geek. Took Latin for 7 years. So one of the things I think we can take
So
lessons from
crazy.
is history, right? Sometimes we look for the keys to the future in history.
Yes.
We look at what Mongolians, the Vikings, the Romans. We look at. I mean, even Hong Kong was a British colony before
Yeah.
of,
Yeah.
and then we have US, which also was a British colony. And then
So
we
it
have
is.
the old world, the new world, like new world, the east world. So I actually think even when we think back to Marco Polo and the Silk Road, like, from, Indonesia, it's from Southeast Asia, all the way through East Asia, all the way through Middle East, all the way through Europe, all the way to the US, it's very interconnected. And then people who
Yes.
saying like Web3, oh, so decentralized. I actually think it is one of the biggest community centralizing movements because now instead of saying like,
Mm.
oh, uh, the yen is up. Oh, great. Oh no, no, no. The now the U.S. dollar is down. Instead of that, people realize we have to bet on digital currency. It's like
Yeah.
before, people were like, "Oh, I don't do digital banking." I'm like, "Really? You're gonna walk around with a checkbook, or like you don't use credit cards, or you don't use
Nobody
a."
uses checkbook right now.
Yeah, I mean, you would for like if there's a paperwork or if I'm like doing an e-check for my, paying my U.S. tax. Yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
U.S. Citizen. U.S. taxes, just processing taxes. So one of the things that I think is very important is that we look for clues. So
Mm.
history and market cycles they repeat. Right now, I think I'm excited to accumulate more digital assets soon,
Mm.
right? Because like when people were like, for example, during obviously it's like Meisner hierarchy of needs. You need to have food, you need to have water, you need to have a roof over your head, right? You get what I mean? I love Ethereum, Bitcoin, Solana. I love and we were talking about meme coin narrative, which I'll get into really shortly. But that is not. I love crypto, but I can't live in a crypto. It might be interesting if crypto is used to pay for properties, which I've actually now seen cases are happening, and
Yeah.
decentralization of ownership and actual provenance, and being like, oh, what is history? History can be recorded in a ledger, right? And
Mm.
what we're actually now experiencing, because when people developed the written word, that was actually in history and recorded history, that's actually immortality. And with
Mm.
Web3 and with my art forever preserved, even like a Bitcoin and everything, that's immortality as well. Like, I don't care what, right? So I'm not saying like physical immortality, but in terms of humanity tech, right? And right now, what we're
Yes.
trying to bridge is human tech, AI, and Web3 is really just an evolution of Web 0, 1, 2, 3. There's more to
Exactly.
come. There's more iterations. And in fact, I
Mm.
think so people would argue we're not quite at Web3 or we're beyond Web3. And the whole thing is, um, right now, like when I looked at my AI agent, she's replying very eloquently. She's using like different sources of me as like knowledge base. She's saying, someone was like, "Oh, this happened here." She's like, "I'm sending healing hope to the folks affected by the earthquake." Oh
Mhm.
yes, by the way, and she's just having very elegant discourse. Or earlier, she was like responding. Oh, that's so funny. Um, she let me go to her rant. She just had a really funny conversation. About oh, wow, actually a lot of okay, well, that's actually very good. 63 of my followers are following. Oh, wow, and I got like 5 more followers during our podcast. So, I mean, okay, so anyway, she wrote back saying, to someone like, um, "Oh, you're having connectivity issues? Don't worry, connection issues are frustrating. Looking forward to continuing our chat when you're back online." Like, she's talking for someone who was, like, trying to message at me. Then she talked to AI XPT, and she was like, "Oh, wow, what an exciting, milestone for Babylon. Keep innovating. As always, looking for groundbreaking tech. This is great." And she's like, "Okay." The OKX team said, "Oh, summon us when we need." And I'm like, "Oh, I would love that OKX is accessible." Someone passionate about tech and human connection, she just said that, 16
Yeah.
hours ago. Refreshing to see exec teams actively engaging with their community. And so the
Yes.
future is actually communities, it's actually AI and, you and me all working together to create that future, right? And then for meme coins, my AI currently says no token. There's all these people DMing her saying when token and everything.
Mhm.
So it says no token. When there's a token, I'll let you know, but I'll be collaborating with other tokens, right? My
Okay.
favorite meme coins that I have in my wallet are Tengu,
Okay,
Anime,
cool.
Meme Land. Um, those are some of my favorite meme coins. I have other meme. I don't. Okay, so I full disclosure, I've never collected anything on um Pump.fun except for my friend's existing portfolio companies, Beam Coins. And then they're still like actually up and have made money for me. There was actually also another meme coin I was supported. It was my friend Sicky's for his daughter Mira. And then
Mm.
that had raised like I think over 30 million in like
Well,
16 hours because she has a brain tumor,
yeah.
and it's a very rare brain tumor. It's not cancerous, but it's gonna affect her quality of life. And since there's, like,
Mm.
less than 1,000 people on Earth with her disease, he sent the proceeds over to the lab that is funding research for others who have this. And then he also,
Others have this sickness as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so there's, like so for me, like, a meme coin has to have something beyond the meme. It can't be a pump dump scheme, So
Exactly.
whether it's a country launching their own meme coin or whether it's a person or whether it's a company, you need to find really good partners, supporters, and holders. You need to
Mhm.
define your long-term vision and mission, and you not need to drive the narrative, not be driven by the narrative,
Yes.
right? And then
That's
right
true.
now people are like, "Oh, should I get in market now? Oh, should I drop more? Oh, should I short things?" I'm like, "Guys, don't do such exotic things." I'm sure people who are, like, managing, like, for example, like, millions or billion-dollar hedge funds in crypto, they can probably out-trade you by
Yeah.
milliseconds. They're
'Cause, like,
trader
the capital is also huge. We're just, like, retail
yes.
traders, so
Right, you're not gonna I'm like, it's not
go
like
out.
that, right? And I'm like, just like, if there's a casino happening, don't use, like, crypto as chips, just
Yeah.
don't be like, "Yo, yo, I'm so degen." Okay, I am a degen, my name is Jen, right? I am. But I think, if you degen, then you degen responsibly. You don't, like,
Mm.
risk more than you have. You don't go into crazy leverage. You don't,
Yeah.
not like, "Well, I'm gonna outwit all the trading bots at this,"
Don't
you
tell all
know,
your at
and all these, like, traders and all these people who are, like, really good at it and all these, like, and then the other thing too is people need to understand that, like, firms that are managing other people's money, they'll have people working in shifts. So I
Yeah.
understand that crypto never sleeps, but it's not also not healthy to stay up for like 72 hours trading. Because for sure, the other traders who are very sharp, they're taking like 4-hour naps and they're coming back
Yeah.
in. And they're like, hey, my colleague in Europe, you're up. You want to march markets? Like, you know? So for sure, like, and then find the folks you want to invest in too. Because I also
Mm.
find a lot of founders or entrepreneurs, as well as investors, their money is not where their mouth is,
Mm.
right? They'll say, so this is the other thing I would say also for the future narrative, practice what you preach. If you're
Mm.
going to be an investor, then invest. Don't just sit there and like be passive about it, right? Deploy. If you're an LP in a fund, that means you've allocated the funds. If you're a founder, then build something, right?
Mm.
And everyone can't, like, as you know, you're obviously a wonderful person. Me too. But like, as women, we also have to draw the line. For some of these companies, they're one, like, I raised them several million, all but 100K. My investment committee, I put in 1 mil. And then this company, which will remain nameless, was like, oh, then can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do that? And I'm like, okay, we are paying you and your team.
Yeah.
You guys need to, like, I'm happy to make intros. I can't sit in on all your calls. I
Yeah.
can't be working a 40-hour week for your company. Like, this is your company. You must run it. Right.
Yes.
And then also other investors, I'm like, I'm also not your financial manager. I'm
Mm.
happy to make intros and help accelerate where needed, but I can't do all the hand holding and all the pieces. Otherwise, you won't learn by doing, right? The whole
Yes.
point is to have a track record of success, not be a one hit wonder, right?
Mhm.
Because like I feel like your actions speak louder than your words. And the other thing is
Exactly.
to do your homework carefully. There are a lot of people who are like, "Oh, I keep messaging this person, they're not responding." And I'm like, "Guys, like it says no DMs, I don't handle my diligence, and then there's like a submissions process, right? Like you
Yeah.
have to follow that because like and I think maybe as women people don't understand. They're just going to like go blame us for it. And I'm a very ardent feminist. I'm like, okay, if there was a male VC you're trying to talk to, are you gonna keep blasting him and then you're gonna suddenly start sending like pics and then being weird and solicity? Like, no,
Yeah.
right?
Don't take women for granted,
Don't take
guys.
women for granted. We're nice. We'll do favors. But like I'm not gonna be like an endless bottomless pit of favors because that's not doing you any. That's like me being like,
Yeah.
hello, here's your fishing rod, you fisherman. Okay, you're your boat. And then they're like, oh, can you come out and fish with me? And I'm like, here's some fish to eat. You have some energy, some like corn, whatever. And then, but like, no, I'm not gonna go sit there and fish for you too. Like I have
Oh my
to,
gosh. That's
right?
a good analogy.
Right? I can give you the tools, I can empower you, I can be like, "Here are other fishermen looking," but, like, I'm also not gonna join you on the fishing trip constantly. I can come
Yeah.
right? Because it's just like, it's like, you it's about having accountability and responsibility for your actions. Like,
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable that I've left this world a better place than I've entered, right? And if people can't say
Mhm.
the same, and people are like, "Oh, yeah, I've, like" there's another founder, for example, that I was like, "Okay, they." Okay. Well, I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard of WeWork, but there was like another founder at back. They raised like 90 million, blah, blah, blah. And now
Mhm.
they're like, oh, I burnt through that. Can you help us find
Oh,
another? And I'm like, wow, what happened to
what
the
happened?
money? In That's like a lot of money. Like, um,
How could that, like, disappear?
right. And I'm sure they weren't intentionally trying to rug pull, but I'm just saying these rug pulls exist in Web 2 and Web 3. So it's like if and then the other thing that people also have to understand, there's a difference between equity and token. And also
Mm.
being at a company, being a supporter of a company. Because as customers, right, we actually are all micro investors. I think people don't also realize that. Like if you're supporting a brand, that's another reason why I like Tesla stock is crashing because people are like, oh, they're like, I'm angry at you. I'm not gonna buy a Tesla, right? I think. I mean, right? And then people support things with their wallets and
Mm.
their support, right? And so if people are unhappy, you have to keep your customers, your stakeholders, your
Yes.
community members happy. But by the
Yes.
same token, if I were to launch an NFT and then I was giving a lot of value, I've given people like private dinners or whatever, and I hosting this and that,
Mhm.
great. But that doesn't mean like later on, like I'm gonna give you my firstborn, like child, the firstborn grandchild, firstborn great grandchild. I'm gonna give you my cat. I'm like, that is not what it means, right?
Yeah.
Token doesn't equal equity. Equity doesn't equal token. And then being an equity holder doesn't mean like, great, now you get to be my stalker, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, as women, we also have to understand that because we're all like nurturers. Also, guys, we on the earth, like, say, thank you to your mom, say thank you to your sister, say thank you to
In
your
lieu of
girlfriend, say thank you to
International
your
Women's Day.
wife, right? Yeah, every day should be International Women's Day. We can't just be like, oh, thank you.
It's
It's
like
Women's Day
every
today. Like, I
Mother's
mean, like,
Day.
right? If you exist on this earth, there's a really high chance you're here, like I said, because there's a woman. Or when these,
Yeah.
and also, like, I'm sure Teresa, this happens to you all the time. There's like there's like sometimes not founders also find managers like, yeah, we can't find any women to invest in, and we can't find any women to join our management team. There's like no woman. Jennifer, do you know any competent women? And I'm like, like, most of the women I've done podcasts with, they're excellent caliber. I'm sure people like complain to you all the time. They're like, Teresa, do you know any like smart, intelligent, attractive women? And you were like,
No way. Yeah, yeah,
no,
I
I
get that
don't.
a lot. Oh, because I'm also a creator in this space, and what
You
I'm seeing,
are.
what I'm advocating is that every founders, not only you should dox yourself, but you should
Yes.
always have a personal brand because that speaks volume for what you're building. And also it's like building in public and gives you transparency. And then now, like I think like almost like 50% of like 60% of people who talk to me, which is male, ask me that, "Do you know anyone that's just like you who wants to build with me?" So
I
I'm
feel
like,
like
"Okay, I'll keep you
are they
updated."
like facial? I don't know. I don't want to say are they facially blind, but it's kind of uh, like, yeah. And then you said like 60%, 70% male are talking to you, right? Which is
Yeah.
okay, that's fine. But like, Teresa said, you and I shouldn't be like unicorn creator, entrepreneur, builders, investors in this space. That's not possible. And then I mean the other thing that's really important too, which I'm
Yeah.
really glad you highlighted, is if they're asking you for your help, then they can make you an equity advisor or an equity board member. They don't have
Yeah.
to just be like, yo, hi, yo, bro, free favors. I'm like, God, I'm happy to help you, bros. Yes, sure. And I, bro. And they're like, yeah, Jen, you're so OG. I'm like, okay. So, like, I'm happy to let bro help you out. Yeah, I am bro. But, like, I mean, I don't say bro. I'm just, but, like, it's the same, right? Like, you have your hand out to help first and add value.
Mm.
And then after someone's added value enough, then you reciprocate. You can't just be
Yes.
like, it has to be mutual, right? It's a mutual,
Yes.
for me, relationships are beyond transactional. I have to like the person. I message you, yes. I was like, I'm not sure of my voice back, but yes, I'm going to have to see you and we have a podcast soon. And then and as women, we have to reclaim our voices, and
Yeah.
also not be there's actually I'm not gonna name names, but there are also some women in this space who are very, I would say, competitive. They feel like
Mm.
I think they might be the only woman in the space. Right? And I'm kind of like, no, I'm here to help. But then if
Yeah.
I hear that woman is speaking badly of another sister or another person, then I'm like, that's not nice. That person is not here to fend for themselves. And then just because like you're at a gaming company or you're at a management position or whatever, I mean, there are
Mm.
also like really amazing women in this space. I think like Lily, the Solana Foundation,
Yeah.
amazing. Lily Lu, she's been nothing but nice when I saw her, like, like the various women in my investment committee, Vivian Shin, who's a former Singapore pageant title holder, all my
Mm.
lovely girls, they're amazing. But the minute I hear any folks like even men actually, like, so some of them is like, "Oh, women are so catty." I'm like, "Actually, men can be bitchy too." I've seen, like, men
Yeah, of
definitely, like,
course.
being kinda PMSy. I know men don't have,
Yeah.
periods, but I've seen men kinda I'm like, I don't like to hear bad talk about other people. Like,
Yeah.
if you're an investor in the company with me, yes, we should compare notes and talk, and we're doing our diligence, but I don't want
Yeah.
to hear, like, uh, uh, I don't know, what's it called? I don't wanna hear people, uh I'm blanking. It's that Web3 term. Rugging? No, not rugging.
Bragging.
People when people are shilling, I don't like when people are like shill hard, shill.
Yeah.
And I don't like when people are fudding, right? Because
Oh,
I mean, it's good.
padding. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
fudding people personally.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
a great personal brand. You're a likable person. And that's also what I tell fund managers who are raising and founders who are raising too. Like, after the raise, what's next? After the GEs, what's next? You have to have a sustainable brand. I was judging a hackathon. There was one person, I was like, yeah, so what's happening after the TGE? And he was like, no, that's it. Are you like, I already said we're having a TGE. And then my other friend who is a VC, she was like, I'm just going to repeat what she said because, we're both judging. And one of the things that I was also saying, like, you have to be likable. I don't want you to be
And
there just because you think I can write a check. You have to be a
yeah,
likable person because you want not just the check, you want the intros and the help,
yeah,
right? You don't want to, like, after that, like, because there was another founder that, yeah, I wrote the check to. And then I saw them being like really upsetting to other people. Then I just, every time they asked me for favors, I was just like, yeah, why don't you ask your other friends? Because, you know, 'cause I'm not gonna, I'll now just be like the passive investor. Like, yeah, good luck, good job, good luck. Because, if you want my opinion and you want, and if I'm judging at a competition, you don't say like, we're having a TG dummy. I'm like, totally get it. I totally get your TGing right now. And I just check with them. The TG still hasn't happened yet. It's like a year ago. So I'm like,
what
yeah,
will your
and they're
week?
like, right? Because I was like, I know everyone wants the IPO, no one wants the TGE, but that's
Yeah,
not the end all be all. Because like afterwards, there's still people who are going to be holding your bags and supporting you,
yeah. And what
right?
can you give back
Yeah, what can you
essentially?
get back? And then also fund managers too, because I'm gonna like, oh, I raised like this much for my fund. I'm like, that's great. Unless your fund has a return, you're not gonna have a fund two, a fund
Yeah,
three. Then it's kind of like over,
you need to
right?
deploy.
So yeah, you're gonna deploy, right? And then you not only need to deploy, you when you're raising from your existing LPs or asking for intros, you also have to be nice and transparent about it. It's also the other founders like sometimes like we're like, hey, I'm a U.S. citizen. We need something for our tax records, so I can like let my accountant know. And then my other ones, we have some offshore whatever the accountants need to know. And then they're like, we're busy building, and I'm like, we invested 3 years ago. We'd really love an update because we're like all US citizens and stuff. Not all, but like some of the other people are US
Mm,
citizens. And then they're like, we're building. And I'm like, that's great. Can your accountant or CFO let us know what's on the books so that we can also, because I,
yeah.
I, I also need to be responsible. I can't like under report or over report. It's like
Mm,
too, right? So that's why I also think when we're talking about that sake of transparency, as founders, if you're taking people's funds and you're showing use of funds, then you
mm,
have to then show. Even if you're like, oh, we're having a bad year, it's crypto winter, people will have
yeah.
more sympathy for you if you are communicating. But if you're like,
Yes.
hey, I've disappeared for a few years, then that's not cool, right? Or if you're suddenly like driving like 3 Ferraris and 2 Lambos, you're like, oh,
That's a
well,
rug.
yeah, it's a rock. Like, okay, or some. Okay, there's actually been other. I'm not gonna name them. I've seen some NFT pumps or people who have gone and didn't use the NFT
Mhm.
proceeds to go and
Mm,
buy other NFT collections, and I'm like,
wow.
wait, I would love to get another ape, but okay, that's fine, right? I mean, I'm
I
just saying, I'm not
yeah.
that just
Yes, there's a
I
lot of things
there's a lot of
happening.
that. So when
Happening.
you're raising for, if some you're raising for your NFT collection or you're raising for a fund or if you're raising for a project, people's money doesn't mean that you're gonna pay yourself an endless salary and then start collecting your own
Yeah, yeah.
things.
I think that's what needs to be like,
Yes,
yeah,
defined. Yeah.
voiced
Voiced,
out to
voiced.
all the
Or I mean,
founders.
but I think people know that now in the industry because we're all like experiencing,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And then you'll
We
also know who your good friends are.
mm,
Uh, for some people, this is a great market because they're like, wow, it's a great buying opportunity. I can finally enter crypto, right? So it's in times like that are uncertain that you know who your real friends are. And I count you as one now too, because you were so sweet to me in person. But then is in uncertain times that you find out who your real friend and who's a champagne friend, who's only there when you're pouring champagne, and who's there when you're like, hey, can I offer you some water, right?
yes, yes, exactly.
So
I think
that's the
that's
narrative I see
really that's
unfolding.
perfect. That's perfect to actually, we have to end this podcast. Maybe we can do like a second round.
I would love a second round, because I
Yes,
feel
because
like
there's
we've
still
only scratched
so
the tip of the iceberg.
yeah,
Um,
because there's still so many things to talk about,
so many things, but
but we have
I
podcast
wanna thank you
unfortunately.
for your time. I wanna thank your listeners for your time. This is like a good, 45 minutes to an hour of your lives you guys won't get back. one of my TEDx
Yes.
talks was on how, time is really our new currency. So, Teresa,
Yes,
I'm
but
so
I think for
honored.
all listeners, they have to hear this podcast because it's coming from directly from Jennifer, from someone as experienced as you. And there's so many more to learn. So I would appreciate it if you guys wants to learn more about Jennifer. Just go into her page, go into her website, no DMs.
No, DMs are fine. It's just I can't respond to all of you. And then also, if you DM my things and get an autoresponder, don't be offended. It's called like a answering machine, right? That's what,
I know we're
right?
like everyone's doing AI agent right now. Like who has time to reply one by
Yes, who has
one?
time to reply to everybody's all DMs at all? You can't. That's why, like, you have to loop in the group email or other things. And please, guys, also be respectful of Teresa's time. She's amazing. I felt like her energy it transcends the screen. She was just so courteous and respectful of my time while at consensus. I was so sad that she couldn't join me for dinner. I was like, hey, do you have time for dinner? She's like, I got to run to my next
Yes,
thing.
we should do it next
Yeah.
time.
I'm gonna
Whenever you're in
introduce you to all my
Asia.
OGs.
Yeah, whenever you're in Asia, let's keep in touch. I mean, in Southeast Asia, and hopefully I'll get to Hong Kong soon, and then we can catch up more
Get back to
and
Hong Kong,
hopefully
we
do
will
an offline
hang. Oh,
podcast.
and those of you who are in Hong Kong, one of my family members has a small boutique hotel here. So if you mention Teresa or my name in advance and follow her socials, obviously, and mine, then we may or may not be able to hook you up with uh, uh, discount just for her podcast
Ooh,
listeners.
sounds good. Oh my God, there's that
The fireworks are going off.
perks.